American WunderWaffe politics. What does that even mean? Well, first off, it's a phrase that I just made up a day ago. And second, I need to make sure that you understand what WunderWaffe means. Where in World War II, the Germans, yes, this is actually where I'm beginning this whole story, believe it or not, had a lot of projects which were called the WunderWaffe projects, which I won't give examples because they're easy to find online and tons of people know about it, where basically they invested in these massive mega projects, which were unbelievably expensive, took up the time, resources, and money of their best, if you want to call a Nazi the best, and brightest of these absolute drugged up idiots who were committing the worst crimes imaginable. It was taking up their time. And they spent so much time and resources on it that they completely failed to actually look at the real problems causing their inevitable military defeat. Again, let's be real, they were going to lose anyway. They didn't have a chance to begin with, but hey, they made it a lot worse by investing in these projects, which ultimately meant nothing, but made the people in charge feel good about themselves, and was good propaganda tools to make sure that people fell in line and still believed in the cause. So then, American WunderWaffe economics and WunderWaffe policies. What do I mean by that? It is things that are inordinately expensive, which I don't even know if I'm using that word right, I'll correct it in the video if I'm not, which have pretty much no bearing on reality for actually solving any of the solutions, and goes on to continue to be something used as a propaganda piece, something which makes people feel good that they believe in, while ignoring the infinitely many, many more problems that are actually existing, which are so much easier to solve, so much easier to comprehend, but doesn't make anyone feel good for actually solving them. Which, if you remember the previous videos, if you've been watching this, I have a pretty firm belief that emotions kind of dictate what anybody does at any given point in life. You only eat because you're hungry. You follow someone because you feel obligated to, or because you feel like they're a good leader. You commit crimes because you feel more of a benefit from the personal benefits versus the harm that you cause. Everything is driven by feeling. I don't know how that is a controversial statement, but apparently it is. I guarantee you that if you say, well, I do XYZ thing because I have to, it's because you feel you have to, okay? Those feelings can be severely intense. They can be driven by outside factors, etc. The point is, people fall for these stupid projects, these stupid ideas, these stupid economic policies because they feel like it would actually do something when in reality, they don't. So what are some really good examples of that? And why am I talking about this on a channel which has up till this point been a personal journal? I kind of want to talk about that first. So much of this channel has been about me, my depression, my really bleak outlook on life, and where I probably am going to inevitably end up, which is all things that are not good. You can watch all those other things, but I kind of want to experiment more and just talk about things that I believe in, things that I feel are true, see where it lends me, see what happens, see if I can talk to people about it, because I enjoy talking. And I kind of want to just start talking about random stuff. I'm probably going to end up talking about Dungeons & Dragons at some point at the same time. I don't know. This is a personal journal channel, okay? Anyway, American WunderWaffe economics. So you're looking around you and you're seeing the prices of everything is going up. You're seeing that everything is becoming more unaffordable. You're seeing that the youngest generations are the most hopeless generations ever. You're seeing that the buying power of the dollar and the stability that people have is just about as bad or worse than what it was right before the Great Depression. And you're wondering why. Well, depending on who you're listening to, you're going to get very, very different answers for that. And some of them are grounded in reality, and they're very, very boring. But I want to talk about the WunderWaffe examples, the things that, for some reason, so many people believe because it gets them emotionally invested, despite how stupid it actually is. If you listen to right-wing media, or if you listen to the President of the United States, you will have the firm belief that housing prices are so high because of a couple of things, which are equally as just... I'm trying not to use too many swear words. Like, that's a new thing for me, because I kind of curse a lot in my vocabulary, and it's really hard not to when I talk about these things, because there's a firm belief that housing prices are so high because of immigrants, because of the left, the nebulous left, or somehow because of Joe Biden. These things, the thoughts begin and end there, but you can get very, very emotionally attached into them, primarily because it dissolves you, your party, or the things you believe in from all guilt. It denies pretty much all of the evidence that might actually point to the contrary, or a mixture of things, which, believe it or not, this is not a problem caused by one political party or one person. It is a long line of things which has ballooned into what it is today. And I am not going to sugarcoat it. Everybody has some fault to play in this. Everybody. But one side has a significantly harsher role to play. And not seeing it is ridiculous to me. Talking point that I've heard many times is that housing prices are so high because immigrants are taking the housing. Or taxes are so high because certain groups of people, immigrants, single mothers, teachers, people on welfare, etc., are sucking up the tax money. Which, first of all, an illegal immigrant will never benefit from taxes. They don't have Social Security. They literally can't pull out of it. If you've ever received a paycheck or spent money in your life, you have paid taxes. Tax season is just an additional thing to take even more money from your pocket, from the money that they're already taking from you every time you fill up your tank of gas. So it's these nebulous things that are very easy to get angry at. It is things that are really easy to be like, well, that has to be the reason, and you don't have to think about it very much. So why do they actually think that? Well, for one, propaganda is extremely effective. It is extremely easy to get somebody to fall for propaganda, some people more or less. You have fallen for propaganda. I guarantee it. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, you have fallen for it. I can say in confidence that I fell for propaganda. Everybody has. It's not just posters on walls, it's everything you see on the internet in some way can be propagandized, and the people who fall for it continue to spread it as their own beliefs. That is the fundamental part of what it is. Another thing that is very weird WunderWaffe economics is that it is actually your fault that you're poor, which is ridiculous to me. If you look at like the boomers when they were growing up into the world, look at how easy they had it. Look at how spectacular the economy was. Look at how they could have had a job working as a cashier at a fast food restaurant, or they could have worked stocking shelves, and they could go to college, provide for a family, have kids, and not have any financial strain. Somehow, we are supposed to believe that that never happened, that the only time that has ever existed in American history is the suffering going on right now. Somehow, that is what you're meant to believe, and the reason why I continue to call this WunderWaffe economics is because that idea alone is unbelievably expensive. It is mind-blowingly expensive. The issue is that it's expensive to the people who it affects the most. It is very expensive to be poor, which might sound ridiculous until you actually think about it for a few more seconds. When you are poor, you have to buy replacement things often because you can't buy good things. You cannot afford to miss a single day of work. You can't afford to do X, Y, and Z. You can't afford bills. You can't afford anything. And every time that something affects you, even by the smallest amount, it is extremely expensive. And somehow, so many people believe that this is the way things should be. It is something that is causing a mental health crisis on an unprecedented level. It is something that has directly caused, at home and abroad in other nations going through similar issues, a rapid rise in the suicide rate from people who are so hopeless that they will never even be able to afford a house or move out, that their education has become worthless as jobs are replaced by machines, which, you know, there was a time period where we believed that the rise of automation would actually reduce the amount of working hours, that it would make us so efficient that we wouldn't need to work 40 hours a week. That was an actual projection, but what people forgot is that the people who got a certain type of brain damage from an economics degree believe that the cruelty and the suffering is absolutely paramount to have a functioning society. People who only ever care about line go up, who have no room for actually understanding the emotional reality of what it means to be alive and what it means to be human. The line has to go up, damned if it does, damned if it doesn't. You need to suffer and work for the rest of your life to make sure that line goes up, because if it ever goes slightly down, this place that you've been loyal to for 10, 15 years, they might fire you in a heartbeat because it would make their investors sad. It is ridiculous. Another part of WunderWaffe economics that I would like to talk about, which you might notice this video is very disorganized, it's very strangely put together, is because I don't have a script. I don't have lines in front of me. I don't even have bullet notes. These are just personal things that I want to talk about, so just keep that in mind. American WunderWaffe economics' single biggest issue is that we have been in a wartime economy for as long as I have been alive. If we stop going to war, the entire economy will collapse. There is no nation on the planet that can support that. There is no conceivable reality in which a constant, unending wartime economy or the effects of war have any benefit to anybody. Do I believe that war might be necessary at some points in human history or even in the future? Yeah, probably. However, the way that is being conducted right now is the most insane thing imaginable. And because of this constant wartime economy, if you take the top 10 nations for spending and you look at the amount of money they put into their militaries, the United States beats places 2 through 9 or 10 with an absurd lead. We spend more money on our military than those other nations combined. That is ridiculous. That is one of the most absurd things I have ever learned in my entire life. And the thing is that you have absolutely fallen for the support our troops propaganda, which, believe it or not, I do support the troops. I think everybody should support the troops because they are either brave or desperate people trying to find their way in life or actually do something they believe in, but you can vehemently disapprove of the people giving them the orders to do the things that they do. If you cannot separate those two things from your head, I would have to call you mentally, spiritually, and emotionally dull. I don't think that you are capable of having a rational conversation because you hold all of these things in absolute absolutes. You are unable to separate one part of a group from another because, believe it or not, any sufficiently large group, all of them, every single group on the planet has people that are evil, that are degenerates, that are bad. Every group that gets sufficiently large enough has bad actors in it. So why can't you apply that to the US military and the people giving them orders? A great example of this is when 9/11 happened. The biggest terrorist attack on American soil that affected thousands of people, not just killed thousands of people, but affected endless thousands more because it destroyed the relationships and the families of the people involved. It was pulling teeth to get any form of funding passed to support those families. That was a insane part of human history, of American history, that they will not tell you because we want to whitewash it to say, look, our government actually does care about it. They just want the best for us. They don't care about you. They have never actually cared about you. They do not. The American country is run like a business, and they're very open about it. It is about extracting wealth. It is about growing the economy. It is not about improving quality of life for anyone in it or outside of it, except for, that one specific nation, which we pay an unbelievable amount of money to every year to fund their healthcare while we can't afford our own. Which, look into that if you will. But yeah, after 9/11, the funding, guess who was vehemently blocking it? It was the Republican Party. Of course it was. It was the Republican Party making sure that, hey, we are not going to spend a bunch of money on some sorry sucks. We just want to go to war and get revenge. Seriously, look it up. That was the actual arguments. It's kind of the same thing with when you look into the history of who John Brown was. If you were taught about John Brown in school, you learned that he was someone who killed people and that he was evil and a terrorist. When in reality, if you actually find yourself arguing with someone that John Brown would have shot, then it might become one day your obligation to do so, because the people John Brown shot were the slave owners and the most racist, horrible people imaginable. Okay? That's more history for you. Hell, even more fun facts, if you want to go back even further, is the propaganda of what the South was. If you ever hear it was all about states' rights to do what? States' rights to do what? All of the documentation and the reasons why they did it, the express opinions of the people in charge of those states, in charge of their military, in charge of all of their things, they cited the right to own slaves as a reason for the Revolutionary War. Not the Revolutionary War, the Civil War. What am I talking about? You can tell this is not scripted. So anytime someone asks you, well, it was states' rights, what do you mean the Confederate flag is racist? It's states' rights to do what? States' rights to do what? States' rights for what? That is the most mind-boggling thing imaginable, because the only thing people see is, well, big red and blue flag means South. Me from South, me proud of South. Which, hey, by the way, You can be proud of yourself if your father or your grandfather was a mass murdering psychopath because you didn't turn out to be them. But if you're proud of your mass murdering father or grandfather because or in spite of their mass murdering, you are a fucking psychopath. You are someone who is also incapable of rational conversation, who is just beyond saving. That is the kind of thing which there are certain types of people, especially nowadays, who are so wrapped up in their head about things they personally believe in that they can't ever hear a rational argument against it, because there's more things I want to talk about. I have to talk about this first. One of the most scary, one of the most mind-boggling pieces of human psychology, which every human has this. You have it too. Every single person is, if you have a deep-seated personal belief in something and you are given evidence to the contrary, you will double down. If you are given factual evidence against it, people double down. Of course, there are exceptions to this, but frankly, I find it few and far between. It is things from politics to religion to what kind of flavor of ice cream you want the most. It is pretty much anything can be applicable. So when somebody hears all of the very factual things that happened in the South, things that are happening in the government, the excessive amount of military spending, the genocides that we fund, that we have committed, the amount of funerals, wedding ceremonies, the amount of families that we've bombed, the people that we have killed for no reason, as the #1 exporter of terrorism in the world, the United States, we, the American states, have become the #1 exporter of terrorism globally. If you see all of these examples, they'll double down and be irrationally mad at you, or irrationally upset, or just confused at how you could arrive at such a conclusion, because it doubles back to my conversation about emotion. People will not change their minds unless you find an emotional reason for them to do so. They will not change their actions, their behaviors, their opinions, unless they feel as if they should. They will not change it out of an actual physical, intellectual place. They will only change because they feel that they should change. And there are people in debate circles, both good and bad, who do not grasp this concept. If I were to debate somebody, which I don't think I'd be particularly good at, because I suffer from the problem of, there's a really funny clip I like to mention where it's the "for $1 name a woman" thing, where a guy goes over to a woman on the street and says, "For $1 name a woman," and this woman, she is a woman, but she can't think of anything. It's put on the spot. Human psychology. You're put on the spot, you're under stress, your brain just shuts down, okay? Your thought process, all this.
It's for $1. Name a woman.
Name a woman?
Yeah.
Anyway, I might have put a clip in it, or might put it, whatever. It's really funny. You cannot change somebody's mind in a debate unless you appeal to their emotion, if you appeal to basically their soul. You need to make arguments that actually directly contribute to their fundamental morals, if they even have any. So, with all that being said, why do you think American WunderWaffe politics have led things to be so terrible? Is it because of the absolute insane government corruption happening at all levels? Partially, yes. Is it because the people in charge are morons who actually don't know what they're doing, who were elected based on the emotional opinions of others? Also, yes. Is it because there are people who are so used to the way things have been running that change is scary to them, and the idea of the world actually becoming a better place, where charity is given, where people are able to afford things, is so foreign to them that they get angry about it because, well, I didn't have that, so why should you? Also, yes. But I'm going to give you the #1 reason. It's the military! Holy shit. I don't know how hard that is to understand. It is the military spending. We are the only nation on the entire planet that has the military spending to conquer, like, whoever we want, but yet we are so inefficient and terrible at it that the one war that we just started, we lost because of how fucking stupid we are. Because we are run by idiots who somehow failed their way to the top. We are run by people who will enter war for no reason, with no actual agendas, and then lose. Which is insane. We have military bases all over the world, and for what benefit? You will hear the talking point that, well, America, we're the world's police. What are we policing? What does a military base in Germany have to do with anything? What benefit have we ever gotten from it? What benefit has the American people directly felt or received from the insane military spending that we have that is sucking up all of the resources from everything else? The amount of money that we are spending, if we just took a tiny fraction of it, just the amount that we get from a raise from one year to the next in military spending, we could pay for so many houses, for healthcare, for college tuitions, for people to have better lives, for benefits in food, but we don't, because we have demonized the idea that maybe military spending is so fucking crazy, so out of this world, that it is destructive to basic human life in this country. And I can also see that everything is not black and white. Do we need a military? Yes. Would I be happy with having the best military on the planet? Yeah, probably. I think anyone could be proud of that. But to go so far into the extremes with it is ridiculous. There was a news clip that went around where there's somebody in government, I can't actually remember which person it was, but they had a talking point of, could you imagine if Iran had spent all the money that they're spending on, what was it, their military or their nuclear program, invested it back in their citizens, and maybe they would have had a better life? Imagine if we did that. Imagine if we actually spent money on our own people. If we invested in the futures of the people that we have. See, this is the horrible truth. American WunderWaffe economics does not come from just the top. It is positions held by people at the bottom as well. I had a conversation with a girl in Tennessee on American place in politics and what they should and shouldn't be able to do. And I was making the argument that if you have the ability and it would be easy for you to do it to better the lives of other people, it should be your responsibility if you are put in a position of power. That should be an easy slam dunk idea that just about everyone should have. And I would make points of, wouldn't it be really good if we had better healthcare, if healthcare wasn't so unaffordable, if college tuition prices were cheaper, if people could make sure that their kids were fed every day at school without having to fight for it, without having to fight these people who are batshit insane in their policy decisions, in that, well, I don't think kids should be able to have free things. It's like, you're feeding kids. How is that an argument? And she would agree with these things, but every time I said that we have more money than we could ever use, that we are not using, that we are allowing people to hoard at the very top, with people who, again, when I go back to the example of the easy life of the boomers, the tax rate they had on the rich was 97% at the upper brackets. And they spent that money on making America a better place where things were cheaper, where people could afford to live easier. She could not understand that American politics should and could be able to actually better your life. The exact thing she would say repeatedly was, well, America's government, its job is to govern. And I kept asking, well, what do you mean by this? I said, well, it's enforcing laws. Now, I didn't say this at the time, and I wish I did, because it's a phrase that I think could affect anybody, is the purpose of a system is what it does. Now, what do I actually mean by that? Well, to put it very simply, if I have a machine called the Orphan Obliterator 9000, and it has been in function from like the 40s until now, and the entire point of it is if you put an orphan in it, it absolutely obliterates them. It's been in use forever. It's been used by both political parties. It's been used by our forefathers. It's been used by everybody, and it just exists, but it's causing so much evil, and we don't turn it off, and we keep funding it. Why would you defend it? Maybe it had a purpose, but right now, the Orphan Obliterator 9000 is obliterating orphans. And now let's say that somebody came along and was like, wow, the Orphan Obliterator 9000, with a very minimal amount of effort, actually, we can make car engines. Yeah, we might have to fire the people who are currently running the Orphan Obliterator 9000, and maybe that might be a little hard, but we can make it make car engines instead, which is a benefit to just about everyone, because it would make more car engines. Those are things that we need. And yet you will say that, but people will hear you make that example. People will hear it and say, well, that's not what it does. That's not the purpose of it. Its purpose is to obliterate orphans. Just like how the American government currently functions in a way to make sure that you are constantly in debt and poor, and make sure that if you're already at the top, that you continue to receive tax cuts, that your tax money does not get spent on actual things of importance, does not go to public services, does not go to the roads, does not go to anything. They make sure that you are constantly in a state of existing with the Orphan Obliterator 9000. And when somebody dares to suggest that, well, if we just change the people running it, instead of obliterating orphans, instead of making it so that the disparity in wealth between everybody is getting significantly worse, instead of making sure that people who go to college can't find jobs because, we're replacing everything with automation, instead of making it so that we are currently working 40 hours a week and everybody is incredibly depressed, if we just spent a little bit of the money, like right now, it would actually benefit everybody else. They'll get mad at you. And this is what I mean by people double down. Again, not scripted. I could probably write up 1,000 examples of things that would actually benefit everybody, including historical examples. Oh, hey, there's an interim right there. Anyway, I could probably come up with 1,000 examples of times where work hours were reduced and the economy fucking boomed. That happened before in various places. Because when people have more free time and are happier, they spend more and then they become more productive because they are happier. Someone who has their hopes and dreams obliterated by debt and despair and a crushing work week that they don't get to spend any time with their family or their friends because, you spend 8 hours a day at work, then you come home and you're miserable and you're recovering from work, or if you're preparing for work the next day or in the morning, you're not doing things you actually enjoy. Your life becomes meaningless and soulless. You become a zombie in the system who just exists. People had more time. Guess what? They would become happier. And I think that being happier is actually significantly more important than holding up a wartime economy that supports genocide. I think that giving children a better education, making sure that children are fed in schools, that the homeless are at least sheltered, if not housed, if making sure that healthcare is not inordinately expensive, like in how it is in America, how it is not like in every other developed country on the planet, how if we made it so that when tax season came around, it was the most confusing fucking thing imaginable. The government just told you how much money you owe because of the lobbyists, life would be better. But because things haven't been that way, because it's an uncomfortable idea that, wow, the government that fucking hates me might actually be able to help me in a way, because it's so uncomfortable. And because people have fallen for the propaganda by people saying that, oh no, this would never work. That's a communism or a socialism, with an ism at the end of it, which I will never directly say that I support either one of those, because I think they both also have their bad ideas. But guess what? The system we have right now is failing us. It is failing everybody. It is disgusting that we constantly live in a state of everyone getting angrier and more depressed and more hopeless, and we are doing nothing about it. Revolutions have started across the world for significantly less. They have started recently for less, and they have succeeded for less. Here is the one thing about politics and human rights, which there are people who have significantly larger platforms than I, who are more articulate than I, who have opinions that I think are much more easy to comprehend, that are also just as good as mine, if not better, who have much more concrete policy ideas, will not tell you because I think they're afraid. Every single cause for good, which has benefited the majority of society through history, has come from a place of violence. Just look at how we got wheelchair accessible buildings in general. Look at the people who had to, again, violence doesn't mean putting bullets in flesh. It doesn't mean drawing blood. It doesn't mean that violence comes from disruption. It causes from causing harm in some way, financially, socially, economically, something. Disabled people had to make the most uncomfortable display of desperation to get it to pass. I will throw images of it on the screen now so you can see just how depressing it was. And they had to fight for it. And I want to give you an example that I came up with for what it actually means to love your fellow person and what it should mean to want to fight for that person. Let's say, for the sake of example, I am holding something, and as long as I hold this hat, just for the sake of example, every day 3 people are going to die. For what cause? For what reason? Doesn't really matter. Make one up of your own. Maybe it's the constant healthcare denials. Maybe it's the war that we're committing. Maybe it's the people that we're shooting in the street because somehow people believe that we'll fix the economy by deporting people. Maybe it's one of those stupid ideas. And every day that I hold this hat, I become $10,000 richer. Now, if we have proper channels discussion, how would you convince me to put the hat down? See, people fall for this, we just have to vote people out. We have to do XYZ thing. We have to go through proper channels and legal action and make sure that we're all good Samaritans. You fell for the trap. You have fallen for the talking point, the restrictions put in place by the people who do not care about you. You have fallen for the talking points, the people who want to keep you, if not oppressed, then poor and desperate, and keeping them rich because the proper channels are set up by the people in control. The proper answer to how would you get this hat away from me to stop the needless amounts of death and the personal enrichment that I get, because if I'm one of these people, why would I give a shit? You're on a phone. You are a person in a comment section. You could comment anything you like, any moral argument that you could possibly have. You could be the most righteous person. You could appeal to morality, ethics. You could appeal to examples in history. You could appeal to humanity. You could appeal to religion. If I don't know if I said that one already, you could appeal to all these things. But guess what? I don't have to listen to you. I can't listen to you. I'm not listening to you because this is a recording. When someone protests in the street for things to get better, why would the people listen to you? It's because you won't do anything. If you truly had love for your fellow man, the correct answer, if you were here, instead of talking at me, would be to pry it from my hands. And if I tried to fight you, you would put your thumbs in my eyes until I stopped screaming and stopped moving to take it from me, to stop people from dying. That is an uncomfortable truth, but it is how every revolution has happened, how every part of human rights happens in history, because the people at the top are not listening. They don't care. They have everything they want, and the only times they will ever respond to you is if you inconvenience them thoroughly. See, I don't know how better to put it than that. And the most disheartening part about American WunderWaffe politics is that we have convinced ourselves that a better life is not possible or that it is not worth the effort. As it stands right now, the Orphan obliteration machine is running at maximum capacity. It is obliterating orphans every day. It is making people poor and in debt every day. It is making sure that people are unable to get or use the education that they want, that they think they should have for a better life. It is making sure that you have no rights for a vacation from work. It is making sure that you are subject to as many abuses by the people above you as humanly possible. And the people doing it to you know that they don't have to change because they are safe and secure. They do not have to listen. A really good example of how legality and morality are completely separate is, do you know how the police started in the United States? The police as an organization, they were slave catchers. That is how they started. And if you look at American police today, you can still see remnants of how fucking corrupt these people are and how monstrous they are. Name another country on the planet where people have so much distrust in their own police as America. You will not be able to find an example. There are places where it is bad, but it is not nearly as dystopian and nightmarish as it is in America. These WunderWaffe politics, these insane, grandiose ideas of how things should be, the things that we can't change, how the world should be working, it is mind-blowing. If you want change in the world, if you want to help your fellow man, if you want to stop the tap water from turning brown in your own house, if you want to stop the destruction of environments as they shrink national monuments and national parks to develop on them and drill for oil, if you think that people should not have to suffer through endless student debt, like how every other country on the planet is that is thoroughly developed, who don't have to deal with these problems, if you think that medical bills shouldn't be so ridiculously expensive and an outright scam, because, hey, you know that if you don't have insurance, they'll bill you for like $900 for something, which is fucking insane. But if you do have insurance, they'll still charge you $900, but they'll charge your insurance for $12,000. Those are things that happen all the time, and we've just accepted it. I don't know how I can convince you or anybody to actually use your Second Amendment when the time comes if things get worse. I don't know how I could convince you to protest, to block the streets, which, by the way, don't block the streets. That is a terrible example. I should not have said that, because when you actually hurt the people that are unrelated, you hurt your own cause. Just look at the Just Stop Oil people who were so inefficient at their actual protests that they ended up getting funded by the people doing the oil drilling, because they're like, wow, these people are fucking stupid. We should pay them. Another funny example is look at that Tim Pool guy, the right-wing conspiracy theorist, racist, borderline neo-Nazi, was spreading such harmful information and ideas that he was funded by the Russian government to keep doing it. They were like, this guy is destroying America. Fucking fund this guy. His ideas are terrible. This is great for us. I don't know what it would take to get you to finally realize that things can be better, that things should be better, that we have all of the things we need to make it, to see a better world, and to get angry about it. Because people are depressed and hopeless, but not enough people are just angry about it. Not enough people are willing to harm themselves, to harm people, to harm others, not physically, maybe physically. If I saw somebody who was directly responsible for pumping all the fucking pollutants in the air and dumping toxic waste in the fucking ocean, and for bailing out the banks and stuff, I would beat the shit out of them, you know? I'm a really weak guy, but I think it would be my moral obligation to try, because guess what? I think that humanity deserves it. But when I say hurt others, I mean you need to be willing to stop the fucking companies from making so much money. You need to inconvenience them to get them to capitulate. You need to get the government to capitulate to the rights, the human rights, the things that we have in our control to make life better. You need to make them listen. You have to put your bodies upon the wheels and upon the levers of the machine, and you've got to make it stop. But god damn it, we won't. Because the propaganda is so fucking effective that we are so hopeless and so used to this shit that we're not going to. American WunderWaffe economics and American WunderWaffe policies is that you shouldn't be so angry about this thing. You should be angry at the gay and the immigrant and the foreigner. And you need to believe for the 30th consecutive year in a row that Iran is somehow 2 weeks away from a nuclear missile, which they have said for every single year of my life and before then, even though every time that there has been a study by government or by independents, they found that that was a fucking lie. You need to fund the war machine. You need to funnel all of your money into the American war machine, put all of it into a place that will benefit you in no conceivable way. And you need to let trickle-down economics happen. What a fucking idiot. Have you ever seen the money trickle down from the tax cuts to the billionaires? It's almost like the billionaires actually run the government and fund the people in the government so that they do what the billionaires want because they want more money. It's almost like actually the government isn't run by the people. It's almost like in Texas alone, just recently, 70% of the population was in favor of legalizing marijuana and keeping it legal, and they actually had a vote on it. And despite 70% support, they still criminalized it. It's almost like your vote doesn't fucking matter when push comes to shove, and it's just for theater. How can you not understand that you haven't fallen for propaganda? You are not immune to it. You have fallen for it. You have become complicit in this hellscape that we have created, and you think that there is no alternative, no escape, no changing it. Because the Orphan Obliterator 9000 has been active for 100 years, and it'll be active for 100 more. Because, damn it, that's our way of life. That's the way we've always been doing it. I want to experiment with my content more. I want to talk about more random things, because again, primarily, this is a personal journal channel. I don't have any actual ambitions to turn it into something monetizable, something that makes money. I really don't care. I've said in the video just before this that I don't even really plan on being alive in 5 years, let alone 10 years, let alone maybe even a year. I can't see myself then, because this place is fucking nightmare fuel. And I see no escape from the shit that we're doing. The propaganda has worked on me, and I can admit it. I have become hopeless because so many others have become hopeless and complicit and addicted to the algorithms in their phones to actually stand up and do anything right. And the people that we do see that are actually fighting for the things that humanity deserves, the things that we need, are labeled as ists, something ist, socialist, socialist, communist, feminist, which, by the way, if you believe that men and women should be able to share equal responsibility, if you think that men and women should have the same rights as each other, congratulations, you're a feminist, dude. You're that is. I just caught a fly on accident. Shit. People think of like feminists or like other groups like it, other social justice groups, and they see the worst examples. But remember what I said earlier. Every sufficiently large group of people has these fucking nerds in them, these weirdos, these absolute whack jobs. I could point at like Christianity, and if I were to only point out the countless examples of pedophilia in the church and the sexual abuse, I could label all of them as bad, but I'm not going to do that because I know that's a minority group of them. I can't point at all liberals and say, well, they're all useless at their job, so all of them, because it's a small minority. The unfortunate reality is that the small minority are actually in the fucking office, right? It would be even more ridiculous to point at a group of people such as women in general, or men in general, or immigrants in general, or Arabs, or people who worship the people who are Islamists, and point at them and say that they're all bad. It's fucking deranged. If you can't separate groups of people into individuals and individual subsections and realize that some are bad, but most are actually good people, because most people are good people. If you can't believe that most people are actually good, decent people, you are incapable of rational, actual thought. You are so far gone. You have been devoured by the propaganda machine. You have become something that humanity needs to get rid of. And I don't mean by violence, I mean we need to educate people so that they don't become you. We need to educate people and teach them about the sins of our past, the crimes that our people have committed, that our forefathers have committed, to see examples of the human suffering, which is so easy to cause based on skin color, based on sex, based on race, ethnicity. We need to be able to educate people, see the suffering, see the real human suffering that we have caused, so you can learn better morals, to learn that, hey, believe it or not, bad things happening to people is bad, and good things happening to people is good. I don't know how people have fallen so far off the plot from that. And we need to get people to understand that sometimes you need violence to do good. If you love your fellow man, if you love the bugs, if you love the trees, if you love the birds, then guess what? You need to fucking do something about it. When someone is telling you that coal is clean and beautiful, when someone is telling you that wind power is somehow the most destructive fucking thing, when they deny the safety of nuclear power, that person is not genuine. They have either A, become a sucker who's fallen for propaganda, or B, there's someone who profits off of these things, the systems that exist, and guess what? You need to inconvenience the fuck out of them. I don't want to just ramble forever. There are so many things that I am very upset about in the nation right now. There are so many things that I think are just outright stupid. There are so many people that are in stupid positions of power who have things that are ridiculous to hear about on the news. And you might have noticed that this is the first time in a video where I'm standing up, because if I'm sitting down, I would shoot up anyway from how upset I am about things. And I like to summarize my videos, at least, if not at the end of it, but at the beginning or in the middle, at some point, about how I feel about things. I feel angry, and a part of me feels hopeless, because I do not actually believe that I will see the positive changes I want in this lifetime. I do not think that I will actually see the punishment for genocide happening to the people who deserve it while they're alive. I don't think we're ever going to see people face justice for the financial crimes committed that are somehow considered legal. I don't know how we're going to ever see the mass corporatization of buying houses to force you into a permanent renters class. I don't know how we're ever going to see that get better, because they're legal. but they are amoral as hell. I feel upset, but I really, really do feel really good for just being able to talk about this. I feel good. I feel therapeutic for being able to get these things off my chest and to make it coherent, to make it in a way that I can feel at least somewhat satisfied with, despite the incoherency of the video structure of how this is going to end up sounding in the very end. I know that there's people who are going to hear snippets of this and think this guy is a violent fucking person, which I believe killing people is wrong. I think that physically hurting other people is wrong, but at the same time, I can understand that, yeah, if I saw a Nazi in World War II, I'd shoot him because he's a Nazi. You can separate those things. You can separate ideas into baseline components. No, you probably shouldn't shoot your landlord if they're fucking if they're mistreating you, if they're failing to do repairs, if they're abusing their power over you. You shouldn't shoot your landlord, but you should really inconvenience them, and you should get people organized to protest, and you should get people to actually force the change you want. There is nuance to everything. There is nuance to the opinions of every person. There are exceptions to the rule. And man, isn't America an exception to the rule where we have convinced ourselves that life is fucking miserable and it can never get better? We've convinced ourselves that the government, the people running business, the CEOs, the millionaires, the billionaires, they owe you nothing and you deserve nothing. So why, I ask you, would I want to continue living in this hellscape? What is there to be proud of? What exactly are we the best at besides incarceration rates and murders in foreign countries by the government? What are we actually number one at? So the next video I'm going to make, I'm probably going to talk about like Dungeons and Dragons. I have a campaign that I would really like to run one day if I ever had the opportunity, despite me having very limited Dungeons and Dragons experience and never having been a DM. But I have a story of my own, which I think could be really fun, which I've thought about for many years. And I kind of just want to talk about that. Might be a God, it's fly. Might be a fun change instead of being angry all the time to just talk about something that I thoroughly enjoy, that I would like to see, like to do. I don't know. If you got this far, thank you for watching, dude. Subscribe, like the video, I guess. Send it to your friends to make them angry. I don't know. If you believe in good, you have to advocate for good. And you can't just stop at advocating. You have to actually do it. We need to organize somehow. Well, that's all. I still don't know how to end these videos. If you watched the last one, thanks for the comments about the cool bird socks. It was really cool. Oh my god, there's an inchworm. Look at this dude. I don't know how to end these. You know that beetles are like 25% of all species on the planet? Like, beetles are fucking awesome, dude. Beetles are my favorite animal, favorite type of species on the planet. Um, the one conclusion I can definitely draw is that if there is actually a god, I don't think humans were his favorite. I think it was beetles because of how many of them are and how cool they are. What's your favorite beetle? No, like that.